Hello, and welcome to today's program, Meet Advocacy Fellows from Liberty in North Korea. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Chelsea Alexander, and I'm the Policy Program Officer here at the Korea Society. In today's conversation, we'll have the opportunity to hear firsthand about the realities of life in North Korea, the decision to leave, adjusting to a new life in South Korea, and the discovery of new meaning and motivation. We're delighted to welcome two Advocacy Fellows from Liberty in North Korea, also known as LINK. The Korea Society has a long history of covering North Korean human rights. Most recently, we had a program on the unseen resilience of North Korean female defectors and a program on acting and activism with Minnie Mills. We've also been very happy to partner with LINK throughout the years. In 2019, we featured our friend Joseph Kim for a talk titled Hope for My People that also featured our friend Hannah Song. And in 2022, we brought our friends So-hyun Lee and Hyun-sung Lee for a program titled Pyeonghatin, Escapees from North Korea's Capital, also featuring Hannah Song. Before we begin today's program, I'd like to thank the Korea Foundation and our corporate sponsors, the names of which are prominently displayed in the lobby, for making this program possible. We will also provide an opportunity for our in-person attendees to ask questions directly. I will now turn it over to Hannah Song, the CEO of Liberty in North Korea. In her capacity, she has led the organization with a mission focused on working with the North Korean people to achieve their freedom. So please join me in welcoming Hannah.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much to our partners and friends here at the Korea Society, especially to Jonathan and Chelsea. We're super grateful for this partnership and we've done so many things together I didn't realize over the years. So very grateful for the chance to have our Advocacy Fellows share their stories here with everyone today. As was mentioned, my name is Hannah Song. I'm the CEO of Liberty in North Korea. We are an international NGO based here in the United States and also in Seoul, South Korea. And our work really focuses in a few key areas. We focus first on helping North Korean refugees escape safely through a modern-day underground railroad to freedom. We then help them to resettle in South Korea and the United States, and then work together with our North Korean escapees on capacity building programs that help to cultivate and develop more North Korean leaders, storytellers, advocates, and agents of change who want to work on this issue together with us. To date, we've been able to help rescue almost 1,400 North Korean refugees and their children, most of whom are living in South Korea today. The last part of the work that we do is very much focused on one of the most important and direct things that we can be doing, which is essentially helping to get more information and technology into the hands of the North Korean people to be able to empower them with information and knowledge about the outside world. And so these are the areas of work that we are currently focused on, and we look forward to having more of a conversation later as well around all of these areas of work. But we're here today because one of our programs is our Advocacy Fellows program. And this program essentially is a 3-month program that we run. We identify young, incredible speakers like the 2 young women you'll hear from today, and we will work together in training them in terms of advocacy development, public speaking, and really essentially to be able to develop a deeper partnership with North Koreans in the community who want to work on this issue to help raise more awareness, to change the narrative about this issue, and to advocate for these issues, particularly in a time like right now where the NGO community of North Korean human rights organizations is facing probably its most difficult time ever in the history of doing this work because of funding cuts and changes to policy. And so all the more important that we have an opportunity today to hear directly from 2 young, incredible, inspiring women who have escaped from North Korea and today have dedicated themselves to wanting to share stories about the reality of life inside North Korea. And so I'm very excited to introduce our first speaker to everyone. First, we will hear from Rose. So Rose is from a city in North Korea called Haesan, which is actually known apparently for its very tasty potatoes. Maybe that's why you like French fries so much, just like me. But also for the fact that it's just 5 minutes from China, so very close. She resettled in South Korea in 2009 And when Rose is not busy making custom keychains, which are beautiful, she has an Instagram page where you can go check out all of it and you can purchase it. She also loves exploring South Korea's architecture. You can find her also at dance studios. She is a lover of K-pop, and so if you are also a fan, please be sure to talk to her afterward. Rose graduated from Hongik University's Department of Architecture earlier this year, and for her final project, she actually designed a memorial to honor North Korean human rights and to provide comfort to defectors who had to leave their homeland. She will speak about that today a little bit more. As an advocacy fellow, Rose hopes to continue finding her identity and to be able to help increase more interest on this issue. Please help me welcome Rose.
As a child in North Korea, I loved quiet, warm mornings. At dawn, I would wake to the sound of breakfast being made in the kitchen. When my feet grew cold, I would burrow deeper into my grandfather's blanket. A day that began with the smell of a home-cooked meal was nothing special then, just an ordinary morning. I always come back to the memory when I think of home. Growing up, I lived with my grandparents. We worked the fields together, swam in the Yalu River side by side, and grew tomatoes, eggplants, and cucumbers in a small garden. In the summers, my cousins and I played in the mountains and gathered wild strawberries. Every fall, I always looked forward to the corn harvest. This was the world I knew, and I was quite happy with it. My mother's work as a broker, helping families separated by the border reunite or at least connect via phone. And her other job selling smuggled CDs containing Korean dramas eventually led to her arrest. She was released quickly but was placed under close surveillance. With no other way to support our family, she made the difficult decision to defect. It was a choice made easier, she later told me, by the countless Korea dramas she had watched over the years that offered a glimpse into a life outside North Korea. One winter vacation, my mother said, "Let's go on a trip." I could barely contain my excitement. I had rarely ventured far from my hometown. And I thought I was finally traveling somewhere new. My grandmother gave me a warm boiled egg and told me to be safe. I didn't know that it would be the last time I would ever see her. The journey never stopped. We left in winter and ended up Southeast Asia, where summer never ends. Only then did I realize this trip was an escape, and it was only one way. When we finally arrived in South Korea, I couldn't accept my new reality. I was only a child, but in my heart, I knew I would never see my grandparents again. It felt like a cruel trip, and for a while, I resented my mom. But life carried on, and I found myself adapting to South Korean society pretty quickly. I changed my accent and learned things by asking friends. Even at a young age, I instinctively felt the need to fit in. I was proud of myself for not looking or sounding like a North Korean. Then one day, in our elementary school classroom, the topic of the North Korea came up. At that moment, I felt everyone's eyes on me. Although no words were spoken, the silence between me and my classmates felt like a war. As much as I tried to push it away, the feelings continued to follow me. In middle school, while watching a soccer game with friends and cheering for South Korea, someone said, "Shouldn't you be rooting for North Korea?" I felt the color drain from my face. And once again, I felt the gap between me and them. And I wondered if I could ever close the distance. Years later, in university, a professor mistakenly thought my South Korean friend was North Korea. She strongly denied it and took great offense, demanding a formal apology from the professor. Seeing her reaction, I wondered what is that about me. This incident left a deep scar on my heart. As time went on, I realized that I wasn't as well adapted as I thought. I had been living my life avoiding who I was. Whenever the topic of North Korea came up conversation, I cringed and tried to change the subject. When my family in North Korea would secretly call us, I would hang up the phone after a brief greeting, afraid I would burst into tears. I couldn't face how much I missed them because I didn't want to accept that I may never see them again. Amidst these complex emotions, I began to my work on North Korean human rights. I wanted to change how North Koreans were portrayed as pitiful or dangerous. But doing this work scared me at first. If I shared my story, would people look at me again with those silent, disapproving eyes? Then I began to understand something important. Those fears came from my own hidden prejudice. If I believed that North Koreans would only be seen a certain way, didn't that also mean it was how I saw them? Confronting the deepest part of myself allowed me to finally embrace who I was. I stopped hiding and began to explore the thoughts and feelings I had suppressed for so long. In 2022, I took part in Liberty in North Korea's co-creators program. It's a unique opportunity for North and South Korean students to work together on advocacy project. Our team's project was called North Korea Travel. We highlight different regions of the country and shared facts about life there, leading naturally into conversation about human rights. As I worked on this project, it occurred to me how much I actually didn't know my own country. Due to the regime's strict restrictions of movement, I never traveled beyond my hometown until the day I left North Korea for good. When I explained this to participants, they listened attentively and said it was their first time learning about it. Their sincerity caught me off guard. I realized that prejudice often does not come from malice, but simply a lack of knowledge and understanding. After that experience, I knew I wanted to continue creating moments of connection and understanding about North Korea. I figured the perfect way to reach people would be through the medium I know best, architecture. For my graduation project, I designed the North Korean Human Rights Memorial Hall. I chose Imjinga, near the DMZ, as the symbolic location. The space I conceptualized commemorates the sorrow of separation and allows visitors to experience the surveillance, chaos, and oppression North Koreans face in their daily lives. The Pantheon in Rome directs our gaze toward the sky. I turned that idea upside down. In my design, the ceiling collapses into the ground, trapping people beneath, like the crushing weight of the regime's oppression. On the opposite wall, the names of loved ones are carved into stone, representing those we miss dearly. Before politics, before ideology, these are mothers and fathers, grandparents and children. This is a space where people can freely miss and yearn for the people they left behind. And it is a reminder that North Korea is home to our family, friends, and neighbors. Last year, when I visited the Holocaust Memorial in Washington, D.C., I felt that it was more than just a commemorative site. It was a space that showcased how to confront humanity's darkest history to ensure that such things are never repeated again. Standing there, I hope that one day, the human rights abuses faced by North Koreans would also just be a memory for us to reflect on. I no longer hide my identity. My story began in North Korea, in a beautiful city by the Yalu River. Even now, on quiet mornings, my thoughts drift back to my grandparents' house. I want the world to see North Korea like I do, through the warmth of ordinary days and the humanities of its people. I dream of returning home one day, when all North Koreans can live free and full lives. Until then, I will continue to speak through the language of space and the power of stories. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights begins with this. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. These aren't just words on paper, but a reality that we can create together. Please join me today to advance freedom and human rights for all North Koreans. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose. Our fellows have been traveling around for about 2 months doing a lot of these events, so as you can imagine how difficult it is to have to share their stories repeatedly all the time, but very thankful for both of them. Just as a quick reminder, because we didn't realize the TV situation, there are also subtitles available on the screen right here, if that's helpful. And there are also some images. So fortunately, some of you may have missed. We did show some of Rose's project that she had seen, but you can go back later on to the recording and rewatch it again with the subtitles and some of the images to check that out. So our next speaker, our final advocacy fellow, is Hannah. Hannah is from Hwaryong, a city also that has very, very cold winters and very hot summers in North Korea. It's apparently also the only place that grows white apricots in the entire country. In 2019, right before the pandemic, Hannah escaped from North Korea, and she was actually connected to Liberty in North Korea's rescue networks in China. After escaping safely, she resettled in South Korea, and today she is very active. She loves running and rock climbing. Hannah is a fourth-year student actually at the same school as Rose. She also attends Hongik University, and she's studying electrical engineering. While participating in Link's Changemaker Scholarship Program, she worked on helping to develop devices and strategies that can increase information access for people inside North Korea. As an advocacy fellow, her goal is to strengthen her leadership and public speaking to be able to garner more support and to foster greater collaboration on this issue. Please join me in welcoming Hannah.
How many times have you checked your phone today? 50? 100? Every time we look at the screen, we are connected to the world around us and an endless stream of information, news, research, entertainment, and even groundbreaking innovation like AI. Now, imagine waking up tomorrow in a place without the internet, without access to outside information, only the news and stories the government permits. A place where people are executed for sharing foreign media and where families risk their lives just to stay in touch across borders. For 26 million people in North Korea, this is their reality. And 6 years ago, I was one of them. I was born in Hwaryong, a city in the northernmost part of North Korea, near the Tuman River. Winters were brutal and there were frequent shortages of fuel and electricity. My father was a high school physics teacher. He was quiet, loyal, and diligent. His days started at 7 a.m. in the classroom and went late into the night, even on weekends. But despite his dedication, the monthly rations he received were not enough for our family. So in order to survive, my mother began selling goods at the market. She wanted a better life for us, and that hope led her to the unthinkable, escaping North Korea. 3 times she tried, 3 times she was caught, and each time she was imprisoned and sent to a labor camp. The prison camp was a living hell. My mother saw women waste away from hunger and die from simple illnesses. She was one of the lucky ones. Her family brought her food and medicine, and act and made her a witness to the suffering of others. I was just 13 when I first visited her carrying a pot of rice. In North Korea, it forced two families to provide for their families' imprisoned relatives. Seeing my mother stand there like a criminal, her head bowed before the guard, I knew this wasn't right. I should have been in school, but instead, I was sneaking food to her, hiding from the stares of strangers. We were being punished, but I didn't understand why. I felt wronged, and in my anger, I blamed her. My mother had made a choice to save her family, but North Korean society saw as a criminal. My father, who had led a quiet life as a teacher, was denied opportunities at work. And our family was labeled as a traitors. That was the reality we faced in North Korea. In 2013, on her first attempt, my mother finally escaped and made it to South Korea. She worked tirelessly to send money back to North Korea to help our family. She also slowly opened the window into another world. Using a smuggled Chinese cell phone, I was able to speak to my mother from time to time. And on our secret calls, she shared with me new South Korean expressions and words she was learning. As she settled into a new society, despite numerous differences, she also recognized the similarities between North and South Korea and its people, and reminded me that despite decades of division, we are still one people. I was determined that one day I would go to the South and experience the full extent of my Korean identity. I secretly began watching South Korean sitcoms. I'll never forget one called Hongik. In one episode, there was a story about a man who fell into debt and was being chased by collectors. But what shocked me, that his family wasn't punished for it. In North Korea, if one person sins, the entire is condemned. But this showed me that in South Korea, life could be different. That even within a family, you were free to make your own choices. This realization changed me and offered a glimpse of the vast world beyond North Korea. Information, even in the form of sitcom, was a hope. And it was worth risking everything for. Meanwhile, I continued to face obstacles in my day-to-day life. I had learned how to code and use software like Photoshop, and I dreamed of going to university after graduation. But because my mother had defected, I was rejected. So I used my computer skills to find work as a photographer and photo editor. Hoping to advance my career, I volunteered for the shock brigade, a group sent to the manual labor at dangerous construction sites. While others prayed they couldn't get picked for this kind of work, I went willingly, thinking it could be my way to a promotion. It wasn't. I was sent to the Samjian district, a place known for its harsh winters. For over a month, I demolished the buildings in minus 40-degree weather without protective gear. Dust filled my lungs and sweat froze my clothes solid. My only relief, I was being able to sleep in a crumbling basement. When I returned, expecting the promotion I had been promised, my supervisor simply said, let's wait a little longer. That was the moment I understood I understood my mother. She had risked her life to escape because she was something more fundamental than a better life. She wanted to live like a human being. In 2019, I made the same choice and escaped. With the help of Liberty in North Korea, I made it safely to South Korea and reunited with my mom. But freedom wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. In North Korea, my tech and computer skills had helped me survive. I had always thought that no matter where I go, as long as I have a computer, I will be fine. But in South Korea, I struggled with something as simple as a new keyboard layout. In school, subjects like social studies felt boring because I had grown up in a completely different education system with distorted versions of history and philosophy. My dream of going to college suddenly felt impossible. But eventually, I found my place in science. The formulas and equations in math, chemistry, and physics were the constant, unchanging truths I could always count on. I decided to major in electrical engineering. I was rare for North Korean defectors to pursue this field. But I was determined to stay ahead and not fall behind in our rapidly changing world. Now, my goal is to become an engineer who can help bridge North and South Korea's science and technology industries when two countries are one again. More than ever, I see that information isn't just about knowledge and convenience, it's a lifeline. Without access to information, you can't see a way forward, let alone build a future. And right now, the people I left behind are more corrupt than ever before. During the pandemic, North Korea closed its borders to an unprecedented extent. Soldiers along the border had shot to kill others for anyone trying to escape. Around 90% of the market were forced to shut down, leaving families with barely enough to eat. The UN reported that nearly half the population, 12 million people, faced food insecurity, while the WHO rated North Korea's access to medical care as the lowest in the world. Few years ago, when my father became very sick, I was able to send him money for medicine and hospital care. But most North Koreans don't have that chance. Without someone on the outside, they are not only cut off from resources and information, but from hope itself. For many, their future depends on a lifeline from the outside world. Last year marked the 20th anniversary of the North Korean Human Rights Act, but its reauthorization has since been halted, directly impacting the work of many NGOs who are working on this issue and sending critical information and resources into the country. Supporting North Korean people and protecting human rights cannot be proved. We have an opportunity to be a lifeline for people inside North Korea today, and to remind them that they have not been forgotten. With your support, we can rescue and support more North Korean refugees and can more outsider information and technology to people inside the country. And that information can empower North Koreans to not only see a way forward, but to ultimately determine their own future. Thank you.
I want to give a huge thank you to Rose and Hannah for sharing their very meaningful stories. And I would like to now invite the Advocacy Fellows and Hannah Song and our esteemed interpreter on stage as we turn to the moderated portion of today's program, which will be led by the Korea Society Policy Director, Jonathan Corrado.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, and thank you, Hannah and Rose, for the bravery to come today and share your stories. I know that that's not easy to do, and we're really grateful that you're willing to open up, and I was incredibly moved by your story, and I know that our audience here at the Korea Society and watching virtually has also been similarly affected, so we're deeply grateful for that. We're going to get a chance to provide our in-house audience an opportunity to come up to the podium and ask your question. But first, I'll engage in a little bit of discussion here. Hannah Song, I want to start with you, just to provide a little bit of state of play in terms of defections overall. I saw a report come out today from Human Rights Watch that 400 North Korean escapees were refouled or forcibly returned by China to North Korea since 2024. Said that since 2020, the COVID pandemic, China has refouled, illegally, it's not supposed to be doing this, over 1,000 North Koreans. And less than that amount of North Korean defectors have successfully arrived inside South Korea over the same time. So in other words, it's a dire situation. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on and how this is affecting the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of numbers that are out there right now. I did also just see that report, didn't have a chance to read through it also, but I think if we could just take a step back, the peak when North Korean refugees were escaping out of North Korea was, of course, in the late 90s, early 2000s as a result of the famine. And through that time in the early 2000s, at the most, we had nearly 3,000 or so North Koreans making it safely to South Korea. There was no way for us to know how many were hiding in China because, of course, we don't have the cooperation of the Chinese government to allow people inside to be able to formally interview, meet, and to identify the number of North Koreans who have escaped or may be hiding in country. In addition to that, how many North Korean women may have been trafficked and also have continued to stay in China throughout that time. When Kim Jong-un came into power in, I believe Kim Jong-un came in December of 2011, you saw in that following year a drop by almost 50% of North Korean refugees who were able to make it successfully to South Korea. And so that was a huge jump and also a very strategic kind of move by Kim Jong-un to specifically try to clamp down even more strongly on the borders. And so since that time, over the last decade plus, you only saw about 1,500, and then it was continually decreasing over the years under Kim Jong-un's leadership to about 1,000 a year right before the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, all of the borders were shut completely. I have not heard of a case of anyone who has been able to escape directly out of North Korea across the Chinese border, which was the most common way North Koreans were defecting. Even within our own rescue work in 2019, about 50% of the North Koreans we were helping to escape were coming directly out of North Korea. And so that's a huge loss in terms of our access to individuals who are coming straight out of North Korea, our access to that information and insight as well. And so since the borders closed, we saw a handful of defections during the years of COVID when the borders were shut. And surprisingly, it was handful of people that managed to make it across the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, which is incredibly difficult, and then a few people who came by boat. And so outside of that, it was other individuals perhaps that were posted overseas, North Korean laborers, diplomats, individuals that worked for the state that also may have defected from other third countries. But other than that, we have not seen the defection routes pick up again from directly out of North Korea into the Chinese border. And then also it's been very, very difficult. So the majority of people we have been able to help since COVID have been women who were previously in China, were trafficked, and have already been there, and we've been able to help them to escape from China out. But the numbers have just not gone up to nearly what they were, and we don't expect that they will at all either.
Wow. A dire situation.
Very difficult situation. And I think for, one young woman in particular, Gyuri Kang, she's one of the more recent defectors. She defected about 2 years ago by boat with her family. She talked about that as well. For a very long time, her and her family had wanted to defect and had intended to defect across the Chinese border. When COVID hit, she realized that there would be no way that she would be able to leave and had to explore other opportunities, which is how she ultimately ended up figuring out how she could defect by boat, which she managed to do successfully, but is incredibly dangerous and very rare.
Yeah. And the community of North Korean defectors in South Korea is pretty small, right? All things considered, it's about less than 35,000 people.
Right.
So not going to grow by any significant margin in the near future. Hannah and Rose, I'd like to turn to you now, and I want to ask about your mother. You both had a strong mother figure who was very active in the market, right? And who had to put the family's livelihood on her own back, right? And so I'm just wondering, I think this is pretty typical for your generation, right? For your mother to play this really central role in supporting the family. So if you could just tell us a little bit about how that's impacted your way of viewing the world. And you discussed this a little bit, but just anything else that you had to say about that.
둘이서 굉장히 강한 어머니가 계셨고, 그리고 이제 그 장마당에서 굉장히 액티브하게 이제 하셨는데, 가족의 생명을 책임지시는 그런 분이었고, 그것이 아마 여러분의 세대 때는 굉장히 일반적이었을 거예요. 근데 그것이 여러분이 이 세계를 바라보는 그 시각을 어떻게 만들어갔는지 물어보셨어요. 어머니의 그 반경영이라든지.
저희 어머니는 이제 제가 어렸을 때, 7살 때부터 이제 계속해서 경제 활동을 하시다 보니까 뭐 집에 있는 날이 거의 없을 정도로 그런 날들이 많아서 사실 엄마가 왜 있지? 엄마는 어떤 사람이지? 사실 너무 궁금했고 사실 한 14살까지는 이해하지 못했어요, 어머니를.
So my mom started working, just providing for the family, starting when I was about 7 years old. She was rarely home. She was always outside of the house, always working and doing business outside the home. And I also wonder what kind of person my mom was. And I didn't really have a good relationship with my mom. So until I was about 14, I didn't really understand my mom.
그래서 제가 사회생활을 시작하면서 뭐 이제 사진사도 하고 이제 경제 활동을 제가 시작하고 그리고 혼자 뭔가 이 사회를 살아가기 위해서 했던 노력들이 다 아무것도 아닌 것들이 되고 그러면서 이제 어머니를 이해하게 되었고 그때는 좀 미워했던 마음들이 다 미안해질 정도로 이제 좀 죄송스러웠고 지금은 거의 친구 같은 엄마, 한국에서 이제 낯선 땅에서 친구처럼 같이 살아가는 그런 어머니입니다.
But as soon as I started working, just working in the society as a photographer and making my own money, I realized that just all the efforts that I was making to make money and to provide for myself, it was in vain. Almost in North Korea, and I just started to realize why my mom had to work so hard and to provide for my family, and I feel really bad for her. And now, after resettling in South Korea, we're almost like a friend now. We had to resettle in a foreign country, in a new country, to adjust to a new life in South Korea. But now we are like friends, depending on each other.
저는 북한에서도 어머니가 되게 시장이나 이런 일뿐만이 아니라 전자기기나 이런 게 망가지면 그걸 고치는 일도 그냥 집에서 많이 하셨었어요.
So my mom, when we were in North Korea, she not only worked at the market selling goods, she also was very handy with fixing electronics or devices at home.
저희 어린 마음에 그런 부분이 너무 멋있게 보였고 그리고 그냥 제가 생각했을 때 엄마는 뭐든 다 할 수 있는 사람으로 생각을 했었어요.
So even, I was really young, but just looking at my mom, I thought she was just so cool and just so awesome being able to do all of that. And I always thought that she could just do anything in the world.
그리고 한국에 와서도 사실 어머니 혼자니까 어머니는 기댈 곳 없이 그냥 저를 키우셨는데 그때조차도 이제 너무 존경했고 그리고 초등학교 때 이제 항상 한국 학교에서 뭐 존경하는 인물을 써라 이런 게 있으면 저는 항상 엄마를 썼던 것 같아요.
So even after coming to South Korea, my mom, she raised me all by herself without any other people or relatives to depend on. So I always had a very high respect, admiration for my mom. When I was in elementary school, they would, help us, have us like write essays about the person you admire and respect the most. And I would always write about my mom.
지금도 사실 말로 엄마한테 뭐 존경한다 하지는 못하지만 속으로는 되게 존경하고 있어요.
Even now, it's hard for me to express verbally to my mom, I really respect you and love you, but I really do respect and love my mom the most.
That's really sweet, and just confirms what I had known and suspected, that North Korean mothers are some of the strongest people in the world. We talked a little bit about the difficulty in traveling to different places and therefore the difficulty about knowing about other regions. So I wonder, and a Korea Society member named Matthew Park wanted to ask about regional differences. We give preference to Korea Society members to ask your questions, so keep that in mind. So I wonder, since arriving in South Korea, what have you learned about other regions in North Korea that's been surprising to you?
이제 북한은 이동의 자유가 없으니까 북한에서도 다른 곳에 가볼 수가 없는데, 이제 질문하신 분이 이제 질문하셨는데, 한국에 오고 나서 북한의 다른 지역들에 대해서 새롭게 배운 것이 있는지, 새롭게 알게 된 거, 북한 내에서는 움직일 수가 없으니까 북한 내에 있는 지역들에 대해서 새롭게 알게 된 거.
한국에 와서 이제 북한의 어떤 가보지는 못했던 지역들은 많아도 그래도 이제 저희도 뭐 지리나 어떤 그런 교육을 받고 또 그냥 그러니까 북한에서 하는 미디어를 통해서 어떤 지역에서 나오는 그런 뉴스들을 볼 수 있어. 새롭게 알게 된 이제 지역은 없지만 이제 한국에 와서 만났던 친구 중에는 이제 엄청 제가 상상하지 못했던 그 함경남도? 엄청 먼 곳에서 제가 들어보지 못한 곳에서 온 친구를 만났었던 적은 있습니다.
So even after even when I was in North Korea, even though I never got to travel to those different regions in North Korea, we were taught about other regions, and we also learned about North Korea geography, and also we would see media and stories about other regions of North Korea. So we had some ideas, but there's not like a new information that I got to learn about it after resettling in South Korea. But there was some North Korean friends that I got to meet after resettling in South Korea, that they came from this like a very like southern regions of North Korea, from like a town that I had never heard of. I had met people from other regions.
거기 함경남도에서 뭐 특별한 음식이나 문화나 뭐 그런 같은 거 혹시 있어요?
아니요. 딱히 그런 일은 없는데 이제 제가 지금 가장 친한 친구가 그쪽에서 왔는데 제가 만약에 한국에 오지 않았다면 그 친구를 만날 수 없었을 것 같아서 이제 그랬던 거고 그러니까 문화나 어떤 이런 거에 차이점은 느껴보지 않았어요.
So it was a Hongik province, and you asked whether there's any like a special culture or the cultural differences or any special food, but not really. It's just that I realized that if I was in North Korea, I would have never met that friend, and she's now my best friend. So I think that's what I wanted to point out.
How about you, Rose?
저는 너무 어렸을 때여서 저희 집 근처에 이제 백두산이 있어요. 그래서 저희 가족은 모두가 백두산에서 찍은 사진을 갖고 있어요.
So I was very young, but we actually, my family, we went to Baekdu Mountain. We live very close to the Mount Baekdu, and there we have a photograph of our family taking photo in front of the mountain.
혹시 우리 친구 위해서 백두산 왜 뭐 중요한 것인지 좀 설명해 주실 수 있겠나요?
백두산이 왜
중요한 것인가?
Yeah.
Why important?
Yeah.
What's the significance of Mount Baekdu? 백두산이 중요한 이유? 어떤 걸
중요한
상징하는지.
I'll just explain. So, for those who don't know, right? So, Baekdusan is supposedly the ancestral home and the lineage and the source of political power for the Kim family regime. So, it is a very special place and not easy for just anyone to go to, right? You need a special travel permit to go there. So, it is considered a special privilege to be able to have that, right? And so, you got to go to Baekdusan.
어,
네, 가까이 살았다고 얘기해요.
네, 저는 가보지는 못했고 가까이 살았어요. 그리고
Oh, so you lived there and you couldn't even go there.
살았는데 가까이 가보지 못했다는 거죠.
네, 저는 못
So
가봤어요.
she couldn't go, but she lived very close.
Right,
So they
right.
would take a photo with
Right.
the Baekdu Mountain in the scenery in the background.
북한 대부분의 사람들이 백두산 한 번씩은 다 올라가 봅니다.
So in North Korea, people would actually try to go to like climb out the Mount Baekdu at least once in their life.
그래서 저도 사실은 이제 언젠가 한번 가겠지라는 생각을 갖고 있었는데 못 갔었고
I always thought that I would, I'll end up there, maybe go travel there at least once in my life, but I never got to.
그리고 다른 지역은 거의 모르고 금강산만 알았는데 제가 한국에 와서 그 아까 스피치에서 말한 코크레이터스라는 프로그램을 통해서 그런 다양한 좀 지역을 찾아보게 됐어요.
So I knew about Kumgang Mountain. That was the other region that I knew of. But after I came to South Korea and participating in Liberty North Korea's co-creators program, that's when I did more research on other regions of North Korea.
다른 친구들이 뭐 자강도에 뭐가 유명해 하는데 저는 정말 하나도 모르겠는 거예요. 자강도에 뭐가 유명해 하고
And they would ask me like, "Oh, what is your province famous for?" But I had no idea.
그래서 저도 이제 인터넷 리서치를 엄청 하고 그래서 덕분에 이제 자강도에 뭐 온천이 있다는 것도 처음 알게 되었고 그리고 평양이 이렇게 도시적인 곳이었다는 것도 처음 이제 사진으로 보니까 또 좀 멋있더라고요.
So that's what prompted me to do more internet research, and I learned that there's a hot spring. They're famous for their hot springs in the province that I'm from, and also Pyongyang was it's very much of a metropolitan city, and I got to see the photographs of Pyongyang, and it looked really good actually.
한국에 와서 좀 처음 알게 됐습니다.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I got to learn after we started in South Korea.
Yeah. So I was a translator for Daily NK, and one of the articles that I translated was called Pyongyang City of Illusion. And it was all about how the architecture of Pyongyang is used to reinforce regime ideology and create this special place for the 1 million or so residents who are in this privileged position. So I wonder if after studying architecture in South Korea, how that influences the way that you look at the architecture in North Korea.
한국에서 건축 공부하고 나서 이제 평양이 약간 그런 북한에 대한 환상을 만들게 하는 그런 도시라고 이제 생각을 하는데 그런 한국의 이제 건축 배우고 나서 북한의 건축을 봤을 때 어떤 생각이 드나요?
저도 이거를 이제 생각을 못 하다가 책으로 좀 봤던 건데 오히려 한국보다 북한이 어쨌든 공산주의고 모두가 나라 땅이기 때문에 공원 같은 게 정말 많습니다. 네. 근데 이제 그 공원들이 대부분 선전을 위한 그런 동상 있고 이런 곳으로 쓰이다 보니까 시민들이 그걸 쓰는 것이 아니라 그 특별한 날에만 그것을 이용하고 있어요.
So I didn't really think about this before, but recently I read a book on this subject, and because in North Korea it's a communist state, and all the lands are owned by the regime, and they actually have a lot of parks, but it's not for the citizens to enjoy. It's to have statues of the Kim family, and it's only used for the special occasions for people to go and worship them.
그래서 도시 자체에서 그 공원이 되게 중요한 역할을 하는데 그런 부분으로 봤을 때 되게 그 북한을 이제 그런 선전을 위한 공원이 아니라 새로 그 공원을 시민들에게 나눠준다면 되게 멋있는 도시 레이아웃이 될 것 같다는 생각을 했었습니다.
And usually, the layouts of parks within a city, they play a very important role when you are constructing a city. And if, in that aspect, if the parks in North Korea, rather than using it for propaganda of the regime, if they could have it more utilized by the people, I think it could actually be a very good city layout.
So last question from me, and then I want to turn to our audience, and this is for everybody. You talked a lot, Rose and Hannah, you talked a lot about how North Korea is still home for you, right? And so if we can imagine some kind of scenario, and I won't say what it is, but if there's reunification or political rapprochement, diplomatic normalization, and whatever, it's relations between North and South Korea have improved vastly, and it's possible to return. What kind of role would you like to play? And this includes you, Hannah Song. What kind of role would you like to play in helping to bridge North and South Korea?
만약에 통일되거나 아니면 북한이 열리거나 아니면 뭔가 외교적인 그런 관계가 좋아져서 이렇게 다시 북한으로 들어갈 수 있는 기회가 지어진다면 어떠한 역할을 하고 싶나요? 거기서 이제 어떤 역할을 그래서 북한과 남한의 뭐 이제 다리를 넣는다든가 어떠한 역할을 거기서 해주고 싶을지 물어보셨어요. 이건 모두에게 제한신 질문이에요.
저는 건축으로 계속 건축 일을 하면서 아마 북한 사람의 문화랑 또 한국 사람의 문화가 많이 다르기 때문에 커뮤니케이션이 좀 많이 힘들 수가 있어서 그 부분에서도 함께 좀 커넥션을 해주는 다리가 되어보고 싶어요.
I will probably continue to work in architecture, and maybe because the culture between North and South, there are many differences between the two cultures. So maybe there will be many issues in communicating between the two countries. So I would like to maybe help bridge the gap between the communication of the two countries through the medium of architecture.
Great. How about you, Hannah?
네, 저도 이제 스피치에서 뭐 이제 잠깐이지만 이제 언급을 했었는데 그 테크놀로지 이제 제가 하고 있는 엔지니어로서 그들의 이제 브릿지가 되고 싶다라고 했는데 뭐 북한도 이제 뭐 핸드폰도 쓰고 뭐 다른 것도 사용하지만 그래도 제가 키보드 레이아웃이 달랐던 것처럼 그들에게도 많은 어려움이 있을 테니까 제가 좀 먼저 온 이제 그러니까 먼저 한국이나 다른 뭐 세계와 소통했던 사람으로서 그들에게 이제 어떤 그런 기술적인 도움을 줄 수 있는 역할을 하고 싶습니다.
Wonderful.
So I mentioned in my speech briefly, but I do want to maybe help build a bridge between the technology industries of the two countries. I know people use cell phones and technology inside North Korea as well, but for me, as I faced difficulties when I was faced with like a different keyboard layout when I came to South Korea, I know that many people will face a lot of difficulties when the two countries do communicate more, or they become more open. So as somebody who has experienced the outside world, who has experienced South Korea and other countries, I think I can definitely contribute in terms of technology. And yeah.
So we're off to a good start here. We solved technological gaps. We solved architectural. So good momentum for you, Hannah. What else can we do?
I mean, if North Korea is open, maybe I just go and open up a club in Pyongyang and we can all party together. I think, continuing the kind of role that I feel very grateful to be able to play today, and even that Link gets to play, which is essentially a support role. I think, not just if that happens, when North Korea opens, and I believe it will be something we'll see in our lifetime, I think it'll be very important that our North Korean friends like Hannah and Rose and so many others that we know are well-positioned and are well-placed to be in positions of leadership and decision-making. They are able to have a seat at the table when decisions are being made about the future of their own country, and essentially that they are the ones that are co-authoring and are writing the future of their country and what will happen to North Korea or a unified peninsula or whatever that may be. And I think that that's going to be absolutely critical and vital, is to ensure that it is the North Korean people who play a significant role in helping to determine their own future.
Wonderful. Well put. Okay, audience, the floor is yours. So if you have a question, please come on up to the podium and identify your name, and then ask you to please keep your questions.
Hi, my name is YM Hong. I'll just address the question in Korean first, and then I'll just say it in English very quickly. 네, 정말 감사합니다. 저 홍양명이라고 뉴욕에 좀 살고 있고요. 정말 말씀 잘 들었고 굉장히 인스파이어한 그런 스토리네요. 그냥 궁금한 점은 두 문화 다 체험하셨는데 한국에 와서 굉장히 문화적으로 충격이나 제일 이질적이었던 한 가지씩, 그리고 그럼에도 불구하고 굉장히 동질감을 느끼고 그래도 우리는 한 민족이다 하는 같은 그 나라다 그런 생각하기는 한 가지씩 좀 말씀해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. So I'm curious, when you came to South Korea, what did you find was the most thing that came as a culture shock, which made you feel really different between South and North, but also despite that, was there anything which made you feel really similar that despite that we are still the same people? Thank you.
That was very efficiently handled. Wow, that is the model of how to ask a question. And I'm sure an interpreter appreciates that too, right?
저는 북한에서 영어를 아직 배우기 전에 이제 탈북을 했어요. 그래서 한국에 딱 갔는데 스포츠라는 그 시간표에 스포츠가 있는 거예요. 그래서 너무 깜짝 놀랐어요. 스포츠가 뭐지? 스포츠가 도대체 뭘까? 이러면서 친구한테 엄청 물어보고 그런 진짜 사소한 하나하나 다 친구한테 물어볼 정도로 외래어가 정말 많았었던 것 같습니다.
So I came out of North Korea after I started learning English, and after I came to South Korea, I saw that in our school schedule there was a period for sports. It's that sportu, like an English loanword, and I was very surprised to see that word, and I didn't know what that meant. So I asked a friend, what does that mean? And so there are so many loanwords that people in South Korea were using, so that was very difficult for me.
그리고 중학교 때 이제 선생님께서 뭐 금강산 다녀왔다 이런 얘기도 하시고, 그리고 그 어릴 때 얘기를 하셨었는데 제가 진짜 농사하고 딸기 따먹고 했던 그 얘기랑 너무 비슷하고 공감이 가서 그런 부분에서 우리가 진짜 같은 나라에 살았구나라는 게 느껴졌어요.
And when I was in middle school, my teacher would share stories of the teacher's childhood, and she would talk about like farming and picking strawberries, and it was very similar to the childhood that I had in North Korea, and I got to identify with her stories. So I felt like, oh yeah, we are actually one people. We are from one country.
제가 한국에서 가장 이제 크게 문화 충격을 받았던 거는 헤어스타일. 그래서 다양한 색이 있고 그리고 또 다양한 형태가 있어서 그래서 가장 많이 이제 충격적이었던 부분이에요.
I think what really shocked me at first when I came to South Korea was the difference in hairstyles that people had, and just different colors that people's hair was, and just different, I guess, forms of hairdos as well. And so that was pretty shocking for me.
그리고 이제 저도 대학교를 준비해야 돼서 한 1년 동안 대안학교를 다닌 적이 있는데 그때 이제 선생님들과 자유롭게 소통하고 그들을 그러니까 존경하고 이제 존경해야 되는 건 맞지만 그들에게 그러니까 뭐 매를 맞는다거나 뭔가 그들의 말을 무조건 따라야 된다거나 하는 그런 규칙은 없어서 또 그것도 이제 또 다른 문화였습니다.
And as I was preparing to go to university, I was attending an alternative school for North Korean defectors to prepare for college. And I saw that when students communicate with teachers, it was very free, and you can just freely communicate what you want to say to them without being afraid of retaliation or being punished by anything. So there's no rules against, like, even though you had to give them proper respect, but there's no rules about how you shouldn't say certain things and things like that. So.
혹시라도 오해하실까 봐. 그러니까 선생님 말을 따라야 되는 건 맞지만 그들이 예를 들어서 부당한 요구를 했다거나 그리고 또 어떠한 강제성을 부여를 한다거나 했을 때는 따르지 않아도 되는 그런 권리가 있는 것도 또 다른 차이점이었고 그리고 이제 동질감은 당연히 이제 같은 5,000년의 이제 역사를 갖고 있고 이제 조선시대까지는 그래도 같은 역사를 배우고 또 공부하기도 하고 근현대사는 많이 다르지만요. 그런 데서 이제 많은 동질감을 얻었던 것 같아요.
So I don't want you to misunderstand. Of course, we follow what the teacher told us to do. But if the teacher were to maybe request an unfair treatment or unfair request, that I could always say no to such requests. And having that kind of right, I think that was a big difference. And I also, felt the empathy and just identity, Korean identity, because we shared 5,000 years of same story. And up until maybe the Joseon Dynasty, we learned the same history. Maybe in the modern history, maybe it was a little different what we learned in North Korea, but I definitely felt that same identity as a Korean person.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I've lived in America for years, but you guys are a better public speaker than me. So thank you so much. My question is for both Hannah and Rose. So in Hannah, in your speech, you said we could be a lifeline to people trapped in North Korea, right? I currently volunteer through Link. I teach English as well. But I always was frustrated that you couldn't make like a tangible difference. I felt like for example, if there's an earthquake in Haiti, you can just fly out and like volunteer and rescue people, right? But with North Korea, I felt like the options I have are kind of limited. So I felt like my question is, how can I make it tangible? How can we in the room can make tangible difference in North Korean human rights? How can we be a help for you guys and be the lifeline that you want?
Great question. Yeah.
오래되셨는데도 여러분이 너무나 스피크를 너무 잘하셨다고 다시 한번 칭찬해 주셨고요.
Thank you for
그리고 이제
volunteering.
하나 여러분에게 물어보시는 건데, 지금 이제 밖에 있는 사람들이, 북한에 있는 사람들에게 라이프라인 될 수 있다고 얘기를 하셨는데, 이렇게 이제 한국 링크에서 영어를 가르치는 일도 하고 계신다고 해요. 근데 정말 실제적인 도움을 어떻게 줄 수 있는지, 밖에 있는 사람들이, 그러니까 저희가 만약에 뭐 하이티에서 그럼 지진 났다 그러면 비행기 타고 가가지고 도와주면 되잖아요. 근데 여기는 북한에서 그럴 수가 없으니까 어떻게 밖에 있는 외부 사람들이 북한에게 실제적인 도움을 줄 수 있는 방법이 어떤 것이 있는지 물어보셨어요.
네, 질문 주셔서 너무 감사합니다. 사실 저는 이제 북한에 아직 가족이 살고 있고, 그래서 실질적인 도움이라고 하면은 제가 뭐 아버지께 이제 돈을 보내드리고, 그들이 도움을 요청할 때 돈을 보내드리는 게 이제 제가 할 수 있는 가장 이제 실질적인 일이라고 생각하는데, 이제 여러분들께서 어떻게 도와주면 되냐라고 여쭤봤을 때는 사실 막 이거예요 라고는 할 수 없지만, 저희들이 여기 온 이유가 이제 북한에 그런 사람들이 살고 있어요를 일단은 그러니까 아는 사람들보다 모르는 사람이 훨씬 많기 때문에 알리려고 일단은 왔습니다.
So thank you for your question. For myself, I still have my families in North Korea, especially my dad. And whenever he requests help from the outside, we send in money, we send in help. But that's something that I can do tangibly. But if you were to ask me what you can do to help North Korean people, and of course, it's hard to say, but at the same time, the reason why I'm here today is that there are still more people who don't know about what's going on in North Korea than people who actually know. And that's another reason why I want to speak up.
그래서 이제 뭐 저희 라이프라인이 된다라고 이제 언급했던 거는 저희가 이제 디펙터로서 탈북민으로서 잘 살아가고 세계와 잘 자연스럽게 소통을 하면서 잘 살아가고 또 그들에게 실질적인 저처럼 뭐 아버지께 도움을 드려서 그러면 그분들이 삶이 조금은 향상이 되고 그러면 그런 분들을 보는 또 주변 사람들도 또 동질감을 얻을 수 있고 누군가가 갔기 때문에 저렇게 저 집은 그래도 살 수 있다. 그러니까 우리도 뭔가를 도전을 해봐야겠다라는 생각을 가질 수 있는 어떤 변화를 만들 수 있다고 생각합니다.
The reason why I mentioned that help from outside is a lifeline is that as a defector, I have a pretty good life outside of North Korea, and I still communicate with people inside North Korea, telling them about the outside world, and also bringing in practical help to people inside North Korea, and that could better their lives inside North Korea, and maybe people inside North Korea would know more about what's happening and what it's like to be in outside world, and maybe it will challenge them, and it will maybe give them opportunities to make changes in their lives and in their society.
그리고 이제 영어를 링크에서 가르쳤다고 하셨는데 저도 이제 같은 수업을 여러 해 듣고 있고 많은 도움이 됐어요. 그래서 또 다른 이제 문화도 경험할 수 있고 또 그런 친구가 생길 수 있어서 너무 감사하고 그러한 어떤 서포트들, 어떠한 다양한 서포트들 이제 탈북민들을 도와줄 수 있는 서포트를 해주시는 것들 모두가 이제 실질적으로는 이제 뭐 조금 딜리버리는 있지만 그래도 북한 사람들에게 도움을 줄 수 있는 가장 실질적인 방법이라고 저는 생각합니다.
So I know that you mentioned that you taught English or you're tutoring English through Liberty North Korea, and I also was part of that program, learning English through a volunteer tutor. So I'm very thankful for your willingness to help. And that kind of support, even though it might maybe make like immediate differences in the lives of North Korean people inside the country, but that definitely helps the defectors. And through that, you are bringing help for the people inside North Korea. And yeah, that is a practical help that you can provide.
저는 가장 중요한 거는 결국에 관심이라고 생각을 하는데요. 저희가 모두가 이제 이 북한 인권에 관심을 가지고 그리고 국제사회가 함께 이 문제가 정말 심각하고 중요하다는 것을 관심을 가져야지 그게 나중에 이제 북한의 지원이라든가 아니면 인권을 개선하라고 하는 압박이라든가 이런 행동으로 옮겨질 수가 있다고 생각을 하기 때문에 네, 관심이 먼저라고 생각을 합니다.
I think everything starts with you taking interest in this issue. If more people take interest in this issue, and if the international society puts more emphasis on the North Korean human rights issue, and I think that could definitely lead to more humanitarian aid and maybe better human rights abuses inside North Korea, and that could actually lead to practical actions that could make real differences inside the country. So it all starts with people's interest on this issue.
그리고 직접 뭔가를 하고 직접 여기에 참여를 하고 싶고 뭔가를 이 활동에 좀 더 참여를 하고 싶으시다면 저희는 이제 DC에서 애드보커싱을 한 게 북한 인권법 제인가랑 북한 인권대사 임명을 많이 해달라고 애드보커싱을 하고 왔어요. 그래서 저희 링크에서도 지금 캠페인을 진행하고 있는데 거기에도 참여해 주시는 것이 가장 빠른 활동 참여하는 것이 될 것 같습니다.
And if you were to ask what you can actually do, something tangible about this issue is that we just came from spending a week in Washington, D.C., and we were meeting with stakeholders and policymakers to advocate for reauthorization of North Korean Human Rights Act and to also advocate for the appointment of a special envoy for the North Korean human rights issue. So, and Liberty North Korea is actually currently doing this campaign of DC advocacy, and for you to partake in this campaign would definitely make a huge difference.
그리고 렐프 봉사자이신데 그 렐프를 하시는 것 또한 저희처럼 똑같은 이제 영어로 여기 와서 애드보커싱하고 이런 활동을 더 할 수 있는 사람들을 키우는 거기 때문에 그것 또한 되게 좋은 활동 참여하는 거라고 보고 있습니다.
And as you mentioned that you are tutoring through our English tutoring program in South Korea, just helping more North Korean defectors to learn English and so that they could do this advocacy work in English in the U.S., that is helping us to cultivate more agents of change on this issue.
If I can just add one last thing on
Please,
that.
yeah.
I know that sometimes it doesn't feel as achievable or as reachable as some of these other countries because you have the opportunity to go in. And I think we feel the same constraints and frustrations as well. If you could have journalists on the ground inside North Korea, if you could have access to the inside of these political prison camps, imagine how significantly different the level of attention would be on this issue. But I think despite those constraints, there are still very important things that we can do that may not feel as direct, but really do have direct impact. And just like the fellows mentioned, you know, so many of the individuals who have been through our Advocacy Fellows program, our English language program, have then gone on and have spoken at the UN Security Council, at the UN General Assembly. They have spoken from international stages, they've done TED Talks, and the reach that they're having in terms of helping to raise awareness about the situation and ensuring that in a country where you don't get as much visibility in the news about what's happening inside the country, that type of awareness is absolutely critical. And secondarily, again, probably not as satisfying as being able to go on the ground and be there and doing stuff directly with people. But the funding crisis is a real crisis for this issue, as it is for so many other issues right now because of funding cuts and what's been going on. But especially on North Korea, we're talking about a lack of information that North Korean people have. Radio, for example, for decades has been a critical direct lifeline for people inside North Korea that have been able to get real-time live information about the outside world and what's happening. And almost all of that radio broadcasting, Voice of America, Radio Free Asia, even the South Korean government, have all cut those radio broadcasts into North Korea. And so as you can imagine, if you're a North Korean person who lives inside of that country, and was previously able to receive those kinds of broadcasts and have access to the outside world, you are suddenly in a blackout and you don't have that any longer. And we know how effective radio is, how important it is when North Korean people have access to information about the outside world. It has led to defections, it's led to changed attitudes and perceptions inside of the country. And so this is absolutely vital and critical. So things like reauthorizing the North Korean Human Rights Act can hopefully help to try to resecure some funding that's critical in supporting this, supporting some of these critical organizations in South Korea, NGOs that are defector-led and non-defector-led that are doing their own civil society radio broadcasts, that are sending information into North Korea. Absolutely critical. And so that type of funding and support is really important. It does have a direct impact to people inside North Korea today. And I don't think that, we definitely should not kind of underestimate the impact of that type of stuff. And the last thing is really quickly, because I don't know if I'll have another chance, I really want to thank Chris, because Chris is not only probably one of the best interpreters I've ever seen in my life, but she actually is a director for all of our programs at Liberty in North Korea, including the English language program and so many of the capacity building programs we do. And so it's been really under her leadership that we've been able to develop a lot of these programs in which we're able to cultivate more North Korean agents of change and partners who are working with us on this issue. So I just really want to recognize that she's very multi-talented, and we're very thankful to have her, not just interpreting, but also leading our programs.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, really terrific job.
Like one of the best, right? Like incredible.
Yeah, so good, so good. Okay, so in the interest of time, can we take two back to back? So please come on up and ask your question. And if you could keep it brief, we'd be very appreciative, because we've got lunch to go to. Okay, one more. So we're doing three. So please, super short version of your question, and only one question each, please. And then
I'll save the rest for later.
Okay, yes, because we're hanging out together, we're eating sandwiches, they're in the back. So, yes, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Matthew, and it's a really great honor to be here today and to hear from Rose and from Hannah. I guess one question I have is, when you entered South Korea and you spoke in a North Korean dialect, like I guess Bukhanmal, so to speak, how were you perceived? What were the sort of like positive or negative feelings that people had when they heard the way that you speak and they kind of knew that you were from the North?
Very good question. Okay, thank you so much. And we'll move right on to the next question. Please come on up and ask. Yep.
저는 한국말로 질문 드리겠습니다.
Sure, yeah.
지금 통일을 주제로 저는 아트 전시를 지금 계획하고 있는데요. 사실 한국 사람들은 세계 자살률 1위로서 지금 사실 남한테 관심을 충분히 가질 여유가 없습니다. 근데 그런 사람들한테 통일의 필요성을 알리고 북한의 인권을 알리기 위해서 예술적으로나 아니면 또 실질적으로 뭔가 생각하고 계신 그런 염두에 두고 계신 부분이 있는지 궁금합니다.
Okay, question about perceptions around necessity of unification. Okay.
예, 안녕하세요. 저는 중국에서 왔고 하나성하고 조나단 만나뵙고 반갑습니다. 그리고 제가 궁금한 점이 있는데, 제가 중국에 있을 때도 북한 민주화에 관심이 있어가지고 참여를 많이 했어요. 그랬는데 현재 미국에 있으면서 중국에 있는 탈북민한테 저희가 어떤 도움을 줄 수 있는지 참 궁금합니다.
So what kind of help can we give to North Koreans living in China? Right?
I'm from China. I'm wondering what kind of help I can provide to those who have recently defected and sheltered in China.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so we've got those. Please answer anything that you want to answer. Don't feel the need to answer everything. Okay, should we start? You want to start, Rose? Yeah.
일단 첫 번째 질문은, 저는 이미 한국 드라마를 너무 많이 접했기 때문에 사실 한국 사회에 나오기 전에 말투를 이미 할 줄 아는 상태였어요.
So I had already watched so many Korean dramas when I was in North Korea, so I already knew how to use a South Korean dialect.
그래서 오히려 지금은 북한말을 못합니다.
So now I don't actually use North Korean dialect anymore.
그리고 두 번째는 저도 잘 모르겠는데, 저희가 이제 인식 전환을 주제로 생각을 했었을 때는 저희는 여행으로 한 게 지금 한국 사람들이 너무 막 많은 것에 스트레스를 받고 이러니까 오히려 그 북한으로 다가기보다는 좀 더 그 사람들이 원하는 그런 키워드를 넣고 그리고 다른 거를 좀 더 보여주면 그 사람들이 좀 더 마음을 이렇게 열고 들어갈 수 있게 하지 않을까 싶습니다.
And for the second question, I'm not really sure how to maybe approach this issue, but when we were doing this program in Korea, co-creator program, the reason why we chose the North Korea travel is because I know that many people in South Korea, they're just really overstressed just about life in general. And I felt like maybe if you use the keyword travel as the main theme, then people will approach it, it will be more approachable and it will be easy for them to maybe be more open about it and think of it as like a place to travel rather than like a North Korea as a concept.
Yeah, and you do see the way you ask the question about the necessity of unification has a big impact on the way that people answer that question. So the big headline is, South Korean people have lost interest in unification, but it really depends on the framing.
Yes. 저도 이제 북한 말을 했을 때 부정인지 긍정적인지 보다는, 그러니까 제가 경험했던 거는 이제 북한 그 액센트가 남아있을 때 했을 때는 사람들이 이제 한 번 다시 쳐다보거나, 지방에서 왔는지, 북한에서 왔는지는 생각을 못하고 그냥 지방에서 왔는지, 뭐 다른 나라에서 살다가 왔는지 물어보는 경우가 있었고, 그리고 조금 이제 이해가 안 돼서 여러 번 다시 물어보는 경우도 있습니다.
So when I started talking, maybe speaking in North Korean dialect, it wasn't either negative or positive. It was just people just took a double take on like, what did she just say? And maybe they would ask me like if I'm from like another rural province or from another country. Maybe I had lived in another country and they came back to South Korea. Maybe they didn't really quite understand what I was trying to say.
그래서 그들이 이제 긍정으로 보는지 부정으로 보는지는 잘 모르겠지만 제가 느꼈을 때는 조금 당황스러워서 어떡하지? 뭐라고 말해야 되지? 라는 생각을 가졌던 적은 있습니다.
So it wasn't either negative or positive, but I was a little maybe taken aback and I was like, what should I respond? How should I respond if they ask me those questions?
그리고 전시를 한다고 하셨는데 그러니까 저의 개인적인 생각으로는 뭐 실질적으로 이제 한국 사람들이 관심을 갖고 북한이 통일을 해야 되는 그러니까 나라다라고 인식을 가지려면 그들이 이제 개발 가능한 지역을 가지고 있고 그리고 또 뭐 인력이나 이런 어떤 자원들도 풍부하고 그리고 그들이 어떤 이제 그러니까 한국은 이미 개발도 많이 되어 있고 이제 공간이 부족할 때도 있죠. 그러니까 그런 공간이 부족함을 대체할 수 있는 이제 또 다른 어떠한 공간으로 생각했으면 좋겠습니다.
And I know that you mentioned that you are doing an exhibit, and I think for South Korean people to be more interested in maybe reunification and whatnot, maybe their concept, maybe their perspective should change. North Korea has a lot of undeveloped lands and regions, and they are abundant resources, including maybe human resources as well. And maybe in South Korea, they're always talking about lack of space, lack of land in South Korea. So maybe that's another approach that you can take when you see North Korea.
나머지 한 분은 너무 길어질 것 같아서 따로 말씀드리겠습니다.
So for the last question, I think my response might be a little longer, so maybe I can talk to you one-on-one after the event.
Okay, good. Thank you so much for joining us today. And this has been an incredibly interesting conversation. I've learned so much. I'm very grateful. Please help me to give a warm round of applause for Hannah Song and Hannah and Rose and Chris for such a wonderful talk today. We're grateful for you joining us here in person. We've got sandwiches in the back. Please help yourself. Enjoy. Let's network. Let's get to know each other. Introduce yourself to a few people here in the audience today. The Korea Society is about making community, so I hope that you feel community when you come here in person. Join us next week, October 23rd. We've got What to Expect, the APEC Summit in South Korea, in Gyeongju, so very exciting. And we've got more coming down the pike, so check out koreasociety.org. Please join us as members. Thank you so much to Chelsea in the back. Wonderful job, Chelsea. So grateful for you. and their spectacular intern, Hannah. We got another Hannah, 3 Hannahs in the house today. Thank you so much to Hannah and Peter and Bradley. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us. Bye, everybody.